I remember when Hytale was first announced, like 50 years ago, and there were a bunch of people going like, "Oh man, it's the Minecraft killer. This game's gonna, overthrow Minecraft." And listen, I don't know if when Hytale comes out in 10 years, maybe it will kill Minecraft. But this video is not really about Hytale. It's about another game that I thought about when I first saw Hytale. A game that had a pretty similar sort of story and sort of hype around it as this game that's gonna kill Minecraft. And that game was Cube World. Now, Cube World was this voxel-based RPG that was announced a little after Minecraft got like really popular. And I'm actually curious to know how many of you know about Cube World or heard about Cube World before this video, because I thought it was a pretty big thing, but I talked to some of my friends and they didn't even know it existed, weirdly enough. But I swear to God, there was a huge amount of hype around this game at the time. I mean, people really kind of thought this was going to be the next, big thing for gaming. It looked really, really promising. I mean, it was this randomly generated infinite world that you would get to explore and have these RPG elements with, leveling up and combat and towns, dungeons, enemies, all this sort of stuff. People were getting really excited for it. And I was too. I was about, 12 or 13 when the Cube World hype started. I remember I would go on the Cube World website, even before it was released, and I would just look at all the promised features and stuff. And the one thing I always remember is that the game was advertised as being Minecraft meets Zelda, which as a nerdy 13-year-old, that was like amazing. That was like my two favorite things ever put together, right? So as people saw this game, as they saw, video and screenshots of this game and heard what it was going to be like, there were some people who were like, "Oh man, this is gonna take over Minecraft's spot as the big block game." The weird thing is that people were comparing it to Minecraft, saying like, "Oh, it's Minecraft meets, all these other games." It's not really a Minecraft clone at all, though, or even... I don't even think it's fair to call it like Minecraft meets Zelda. The only similarity this game has with Minecraft really is just the art style. You can't break or place blocks in Cube World, which is kind of like... that's kind of like the whole point of Minecraft. So in my opinion, it doesn't really share anything with Minecraft. I mean, there's a crafting system, but I mean, a lot of games have a crafting system, and it's not similar to Minecraft's system, so it's just an open world RPG. But I mean, honestly, this isn't a bad thing, it just means it's not like Minecraft. It's its own thing. And I think Cube World has its own merits and its own promise by itself. An alpha version of Cube World was released in summer of 2013, and I just remember getting the game, going home and trying to buy the game so fast, and then getting my friend online. We set up like a multiplayer thing and just playing that for hours. I thought it was so fun. And again, the hype was there. People were loving the alpha, and sure, it wasn't complete. It had some bugs and stuff, but it was an alpha. It was about the promise. That was really the main thing backing it up. It's the idea that this game's going to be expanded and have a ton of other, features and everything get more fleshed out. Because what was already there was pretty promising. There's a lot to like about Cube World. There's a lot that's really cool about it. One thing that was always really fun in Cube World Alpha was the combat. The combat has a lot of variety in this game. It's not, just click till you win sort of RPG. There's a lot of movement. There's running around, there's rolling, jumping, there's special attacks. Enemies will have different ways they fight. Some of them are fast, some of them are slow. Some of them have melee weapons, ranged weapons, that sort of thing. Some of them are wizards, which are really annoying. On top of that, you get to create your own character, which is a fun little thing. At the beginning, you have a short little character creation screen, and part of that is choosing a class. Each of the classes fight in different ways, but also within the classes, you have different ways to fight. There are different weapons, and each different weapon has like a different move set even. I remember I was playing a mage just recently when I was getting footage for this video, And the mage starts with like a staff, I think, at first. But I didn't like the way the staff attacked. It was really kind of awkward. Makes like this vortex that's kind of weird and hard to direct. So I switched over to bracelets, which instead shoot these like little fireballs. It's a completely different way to fight, and I liked it a lot more, so I just stuck with that. And that's what's cool about Cube World, is all the different ways to build the character, all the different ways to play the game and fight. There's also these special abilities. You'll have different abilities in combat. Of course, you have the normal attack, then you have like a bigger attack that can charge up using right click instead of left click. And you have things that you can unlock through like a skill tree. There's a very basic skill tree in the game, but you can gain XP and spend your level up points on the skill tree. So every time you level up, you will feel a little stronger. You'll unlock a little more skills, maybe make your skills more powerful. The progression is kind of slow. Getting XP is a little slow in my opinion. Most games you level up from like level 1 to level 3 at least within the first hour, but in Cube World it takes a little longer, or maybe I just suck at the game. I don't know which it is, but it feels quite slow to me. But there is some progression there. You'll get stronger equipment, you'll get stronger abilities, and honestly, it's pretty satisfying. You'll start the game right after character creation. It'll just drop you right into the middle of whatever world you've randomly generated, and you know, it feels good to have a randomly generated world, you know? There's sort of an excitement to hopping into this world and not knowing what you're going to find when you walk over the horizon. The game always starts you off in like this plains biome. There's different biomes, but you always start in like this classic, you know, fantasy RPG plains, green grass forest biome, which is, I love this. I'm a big stan of the archetype of video game grass field. I think that's just wonderful. As you explore, you'll probably pretty quickly find a town. You know, as you can expect, the towns you can buy stuff, you can sell stuff, you can craft. It's pretty basic. The NPCs usually aren't very helpful. Like it's pretty rare to talk to an NPC and have their words like actually pertain to something important in the gameplay. But other than that, you know, towns are good, they're useful. You can find these inns all over the towns with beds. And beds, you can actually go in to speed up time. There is a time system, there is a day-night cycle in this game. The beds are pretty useful for that. You can venture away from the town into the wilderness to find different things, find resources, fight enemies, grind them to level up. You can also find, while exploring, these dungeons scattered around the map. Dungeons are kind of cool. In alpha version, they were pretty bare bones. But I mean, there's enemies in there, there's some items. Usually you'll get a good amount of XP from clearing a dungeon, but sometimes the bosses can be really, really tedious. I mean, I don't know why, but the health bars are just like massive. Like sometimes I would fight a boss and it would literally take me like half an hour. That's not even an exaggeration, because their health bar was like 10 times the size that it should have been. And it wasn't even a hard fight. It was just tedious. Like I had to just hit this guy over and over. I would find like some YouTube video to listen to in the background while I spend half an hour killing this guy. And then once you kill them, you know, the loot from a boss is not very good, I feel. Here's the thing, you can get loot from enemies that's not even for your class. Like, I don't know why that would be programmed in the game in single player mode. That seems like a pretty bad feature. Because if you spend half an hour killing a boss, you probably don't want to pick up, you know, a set of warrior chest plate when you're a wizard. That's probably not going to be very fun. But despite its flaws, the main gameplay loops of going out, killing enemies, clearing dungeons, coming back to town to craft stuff, sell stuff, buy stuff, is pretty satisfying and is really fun. The really cool overall thing about the exploration in this game is that the worlds are big. I mean, obviously they're infinite, but each world has different like biomes or regions or whatever you want to call them, and they are massive. Like, they are so big. It takes so long to get from one biome, just from like the center of a biome to the edge and into a different biome. And to me, it just makes everything feel more like a grand adventure, especially because there's this sort of fog on the map, so you never know what you're going to get when you get to the edge of a region. Also, real quick, the map is pretty cool. It kind of has that look of like being a miniature or being like a little toy version of a game. It's just very appealing to look at. And another thing that I remembered while I was replaying this game, and it's something that I noticed even when I was playing as a kid, but I don't really hear anybody talk about this in regards to Cube World. Cube World has great atmosphere. It has great, just a great vibe to it. That's something I usually pay attention to in games. I like the atmosphere of games when a game has a really good atmosphere. And I think Cube World does. What's interesting about Cube World is the day-night cycle, like I talked about before. But in Cube World, the day-night cycle is really long. In Minecraft, for example, I think one cycle from morning to morning is like, what, 20 minutes or something? In Cube World, that cycle is well over 2 hours. So each in-game day like really feels substantial. It feels like a full day of adventuring, and I really like that about Cube World. It's like everything in Cube World's more grand, both the size of the world and also the length of the days. But going back to atmosphere, I think the day-night cycle really contributes, because as you're getting further in the day, the sun will start setting, and it actually does change the lighting. It's not like Minecraft, you know, where you have like this 10-second window where the sun's going down and you get sunset for a little bit. In Cube World, that lighting lingers for a long time because the days are so long, and it's really cool. I really like it a lot. Being somewhere while the sun is setting and the sky is getting, you know, more orange and then slowly shifting to purples and blues is very atmospheric. Another really cool little detail is the sound effects. The ambient sounds while the sun is setting. At the beginning of the day, you'll have these like ambient bird sounds throughout the world, but as the sun's getting lower, those change into bug sounds of like crickets and stuff. And it's just a really nice little touch. I really appreciate it. There's something very cool and relaxing about it. And then, something which I always thought is awesome. When night finally falls, it is dark. Like, it is pitch black, which is something I really appreciate. Walking throughout the night with just your lantern illuminating the area around you is so cool. It's so atmospheric. It's a little bit realistic too, you know, because if you're in a medieval world sort of thing, you're not going to have street lamps everywhere. The nights are going to be pitch black like they are in the real world. So I thought that was a really nice touch. And this is where, you know, finding a bed or finding an inn comes into play, because you're going to want to skip the nights most of the time. Inns actually do have this sort of mechanic where you can just completely skip the night if you talk to the innkeeper. But what I've always liked doing as a kid is just finding a nice bed in the inn and just waiting out the night with the time speed up effect. It took more time, but I didn't mind doing it because it just like felt like a nice little slice of the role playing, I guess. And you got to watch the morning sun rise through the windows. It was just a fun little thing to do, I guess. So that was Cube World Alpha. It wasn't perfect, but it was fun, and importantly, it had potential. It had so much potential. That's what was so great about it. We were imagining what this game would look like in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years. How great it would be when it was finished. And this is where we start getting into the kind of tragic part of Cube World's story. Because after the alpha came out, Wole kind of went silent. Wole is the creator of Cube World. He's the guy who developed this indie game. As an indie game, it only really has him as a developer. I think his wife helps him as well, but he is the main guy behind most of the game. So after Alpha released, people were expecting Wole to, you know, keep people updated, keep talking about changes and upcoming versions of the game, and that didn't really happen. Updates, news started to really slow down. There were long periods of silence. People kind of gave up on the game. It was kind of just a case of, well, this game is dead now, which is disappointing. But if you know anything about sort of early access games and indie games, you know that there's always a chance that a game just might not be finished. There's various facets to the story here. Wally talks about some things that he was dealing with. Apparently there were some attacks on the Cube World website that kind of discouraged Wally in a sense. Some people have really strong opinions on Wally. I don't know enough to sort of, comment on him as a person, but I do know that the game's progress seemed kind of dead for a while. So that's where we were until one day I checked the progress on Cube World, and I saw that people were talking about some sort of new Cube World update version that was coming out. This was in 2019. Wally had announced that there was a new version of Cube World coming to Steam, and he was showing off all these new features that were going to be in the new version, like new quest systems and these awesome, huge, like castle, town, city things, which looked amazing to me. I was so excited to explore one of these. So the hype was back on again. I mean, yeah, it took a little while to get there, but hey, we were finally getting a new version of Cube World, a fleshed out version of Cube World. It was what we all wanted. And it looked amazing. I felt like I was a kid again. I mean, at this point, 2019, I was an adult. I had passed my teenage years. I was in adulthood now. I was in college. But this brought me back, and it brought back that sort of glimmer of like, oh, Cube World. This could be a really big game. Like, maybe it'll finally happen now. So I was sort of there in the midst of the hype. I would go on the Cube World subreddit and just sort of read everything that people were saying during the days leading up to the Steam release. On September 30th of 2019, the game came out, and we all bought the game, we all downloaded it, booted it up. We were met with this menu with an actual soundtrack this time. Alpha didn't have a soundtrack, but this new version had a soundtrack. This new version had updated graphics. It looked awesome. We wanted to play it so bad. We jumped in, and things were different. The longer I played, the longer I felt that something was kind of off here. First off, I couldn't find an XP bar or meter. I couldn't find the skill tree. That was a pretty central part of the alpha version, was leveling up and getting more skills in your skill tree. I couldn't find any of that. Now, Cube World in any of its versions is kind of cryptic. There's not a lot of like tooltips or explanations or tutorials or anything. You kind of just have to figure things out. It took a minute, but the fan base sort of collectively figured out that there is no XP in this version. There was no skill tree. Instead, you had all the available combat skills unlocked from the beginning. There was not really any leveling at all. Well, there was a mechanic where you can find these artifacts that give you tiny little stat boosts, and that was called leveling up, but the actual original leveling system was gone, which was a strange choice, to say the least. I mean, this was a system that most people had liked. It wasn't groundbreaking or anything. It was a pretty standard RPG leveling system, but in the context of Cube World, it worked. It was fun. It was good enough. And we were kind of waiting for that to be fleshed out, and we were kind of waiting to see what it would look like in this new version, and it just wasn't there. But hey, this is a new Cube World. Wally probably knows what he's doing. We just wanted to see what this new game was about. Maybe the new mechanics make it so you don't need a leveling system. Maybe there's something better and more fun. And this is where we get to the sort of region mechanics of the new Steam version. This is, in my opinion, probably worse than the lack of a leveling system, because this is where it gets really funky and some really bizarre game design. I kind of understand the thought process behind this, but basically the way the new Cube World worked is you have each region or biome, right? And within each region, you have to go around doing these little quests and little adventures and build yourself up, get better equipment, get these new utility items and stuff like the hang glider that lets you glide around, of course. And so you're slowly getting better within this region until you're strong enough to go tackle a dungeon. And in the dungeon, you can find these artifacts that will level you up and give you these little stat boosts. But basically, once you've gotten the artifact for a region, you're basically done, and you can sort of move on to the next region, go and explore the world. But here's the weird part. when you go to a new region, you lose everything. All the equipment is region locked. But because equipment is all you have, right? There's no like classic leveling system anymore. You start from basically level 0 every time you go to a new place. Your armor and your weapons will be reduced to the lowest level. All your utility items are gone, which, okay, things like keys, things that unlock dungeons within a certain region, I understand why those wouldn't work for another region, right? Like, you want to incentivize the player to explore around this new region. But here's the thing, you also lose your glider and your boat. If you want to encourage the player to explore, why would you take away items like that? The glider makes it so much easier to move around the map, and the boat is, well, I mean, it's basically essential to move across large bodies of water. Why? Why would you take those from the player when they're moving to a new region, to a region that they want to explore? I mean, think about this. If you want to go and explore a new ocean region, your boat is taken from you. Why? I'm not a game designer, but I feel like the logical choice here would be to let the player find a boat in one region and then progress to the ocean region using their boat. Instead, no matter when you enter the ocean region, you will always start without a boat. You have to swim around and tread water until you get the boat specifically for the ocean region. This was kind of the main nail in the coffin, I think, for the fan base. They did not like this region locking mechanic at all. It was kind of interesting to be there in real time and watch as the discussion around Cube World went from excitement right before the release to sort of confusion during the first few hours. Like, hey guys, what's going on? Did anyone find this mechanic or this feature? Like, I can't find this in the game. And then sort of the aftermath around a day or two later, where everyone's kind of just like, yeah, this sucks. It was weird because it seemed like Cube World already had a winning formula in the alpha version. Everyone liked the alpha version, and sure, it wasn't perfect, sure, like, it needed to be fleshed out, but it was a good foundation. It was perfect to build upon. Instead, it seemed like the game had gone backwards. This was 6 years of progress. It didn't feel like it. I mean, nowadays, this is kind of a tale as old as time, you know. A video game has a feature that's promised, and then that feature is just not in the finished game. Specifically, I really, really wanted to see those big cities, these huge, like, castle town things, because they looked so cool in the screenshots, but they just weren't in the game, which is a shame. And overall, the sort of tragedy of the Steam release is a shame, because there's a lot of things that it did actually improve upon. The alpha version had these huge worlds, but traveling around was kind of a pain, and the Steam version added in fast travel and these waypoints that you could teleport to, so that was good. In the alpha version, the worlds were kind of bare. I mean, out in the wilderness, the only thing to really find was dungeons and other NPCs, which didn't really do anything for you. But in the Steam version, the worlds were a little more lively, a little more stuff to find, and NPCs were actually kind of interesting, because sometimes instead of saying random crap, they would give you like quests or things to explore, and it was kind of fun to find an NPC and get another thing marked on your map. But overall, the massive changes to the gameplay just could not save it. Cube World faded into obscurity once again, and it did not turn out to be the Minecraft killer that we thought it might have been one day. And that's kind of where Cube World's story ends. Or at least that was where it ended for a while. Recently, Wale came back to Twitter and has announced that he's working on a new version of Cube World. Apparently this new version is going to be closer to the alpha. If you're an old fan of Cube World, or if you're following the development of this new version, let me know what you think about it. I don't know that much about it. Some people are pretty excited. I'm being cautiously optimistic, as you might imagine. There is a non-zero chance that this may be a disappointment too, but who knows, it might be great as well. Only time will tell. And that's about it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. If you actually watched this far, thanks so much. And that's it. Bye.